r/AskReddit, what's the most ignorant thing a tourist has said about your country? r/Iceland regularly gets posts asking how to avoid paying parking tickets or speeding fines, or asking if anything will happen if they leave without paying them. Then they never seem to understand why natives might be pissed and believe them feeling like they don't need to pay the tickets is a just reason to not pay it. When visiting LA, I was chatting to a girl at a party, and when she asked where I'm from, I told her, London. She then said, OMG, I hate London. I was slightly confused and asked if she'd ever been, and she said no. I was like, okay, nice chatting with you. When my British friend said he didn't want to visit me in Seattle unless he also had time to visit New York. Had to explain to him that's like saying you can't visit Dublin if you can't also make time for Istanbul. Funnily, my aunt who lived in San Francisco for decades told me to pop by when I traveled to Maine a few years back from Finland. Same distance from Finland to Maine as from Maine to San Francisco. Don't know what she was thinking. Someone compared Canadian money to Monopoly money and then asked if we had Monopoly in Canada. That person sounds a little loony. You can buy Monopoly from Canadian Tire with Canadian Tire money that is more like Monopoly money. There's even a Canadian-themed Monopoly board. An American couple on holiday in the same hotel as my mum told her they'd visited England and seen the Eiffel Tower. She told them that was in France, and they condescending said, no ma'am, it's in London. She agreed it must be and walked off. Maybe they flew into Manchester and got the train to Blackpool by accident. Was asked if we had electricity. Was told we don't have central heating in our houses. Was told I just love your queen. I'm Irish. Maybe they got it confused with Big Ben or something like that. We're here for a week, so we thought we'd drive out to the Grand Canyon, stop in Vegas, and then see the Golden Gate Bridge. They landed on the East Coast. LOL, they better get going. It doesn't look anything like Emily in Paris. Yeah, no shit. There's a shot with two Eiffel Towers in the frame. Every American movie with location in Paris makes you think the Eiffel Tower is 2 streets from everywhere. Also happens in Rome with the Colosseum. Americans visiting European countries is always an endless source of equal frustration, fascination, and entertainment for Europeans, and often all three at the same time. The capital of Malaysia is Singapore. LOL, everyone knows Singapore is in Wisconsin. A friend of mine recently referred to Malaysia as mainland Singapore on accident. My Singaporean friend, who was over at the time, thought it was the funniest shit he'd ever heard. And GT, was told I just love your queen. And GT, I'm Irish. Oh boy, theirs was a very poor choice of last words. I've been here 3 days and I haven't heard the British accent yet. Yeah. That's because you've heard several. We are a multitude of accents and dialects, like every other country. There is no one British accent. The number and variety of accents you folks fill the UK with is truly glorious. I'm sure I haven't heard even half of the possibilities as an American, but I love it. This is coming from the other side, but I'm from the US and had someone come back from a trip to Italy saying Italians are stupid. I don't know what's wrong with them, but they don't know how to talk. The way she said it made me think she didn't even know that other languages exist, and so many Italians speak English. My first thought was that nobody wanted to talk to her rather than no one spoke English. And GT, nobody wanted to talk to her. With her attitude, can you blame them? I've heard multiple tourists plan to take day trips to places in the US that are on the other side of the country. I also watched some Asian tourists try and get a selfie with a black man, who was just trying to ride the subway in peace. He looked so uncomfortable. And GT, tourists try and get a selfie with a black man. Reverse happened to my wife and I, both white, while traveling in India. Folk would either come up and ask for a photo, or would try to take a photo without you noticing. Something about potassium production and our relations with Uzbekistan. Kazakhstan is the greatest country in the world. It wasn't about the country exactly, but I was working in a hotel reception in a Mexican beach and an American woman told me that the water of the sea was very hot. If I could do something, I thought okay, maybe I didn't understand correctly, can you speak slower, and she repeat the same question. Of course I did a Mayan dance and the water was colder afterwards. Was asked if we have telephones. From Australia. I'd have taken a few ice cubes, thrown them in the ocean, then given her a smile and a thumbs up. When I was bartending in college, I had an American woman insist Iceland was so safe because everyone was carrying a gun at all times, like she didn't just say it once. She kept contradicting and arguing with me after I told her Iceland has insanely strict gun laws compared to the USA and definitely does not allow everyone to open/conceal carry. That woman might have confused Iceland with Svalbard, Norwegian sovereign territory, but somewhat close to Iceland. Everyone carries a gun there due to polar pairs. The murder rate is like 0. Why can't I pay with American dollars in Canada? Canada is part of the US. After explaining that Canada is a whole different country and that they can go exchange their currency a few blocks away, they just threw a tantrum. After multiple curses and threats, they finally left. How can you be so dense as to think a different country is part of the US and uses US money? What do they teach in American schools? How did they even get into Canada? Did they just drive past customs without stopping? I saw a YT short recently of a woman who was astonished to find that July 4th isn't celebrated worldwide, and many people had never even heard of it. Amazing. And as a Brit here, not something we'd likely celebrate, is it, really? Filipino here, the US tried to get us to do it by scheduling the official granting of independence, from them, on July 4th. And we did for a decade or so before deciding the Declaration of Independence from Spain counted and we wanted our own damn date. Not a tourist, but when we were kids we went on holiday to Great Yarmouth, England, and a girl serving at an ice cream stall wouldn't take my dad's Scottish 10 note because Scotland isn't part of the UK and is a separate island. Sadly, I am not surprised. In the States, we have problems with people being ignorant about New Mexico, Guam, and Puerto Rico like that. Everyone here speaks such good English. In London. Also, I've been asked repeatedly what my plans for Thanksgiving are. We also have a couple of coins, $1, 50, and $1 bill/note, $2, that are rarely used, and people sometimes don't recognize them as valid or what their value is. Where do you keep the Vikings? An American tourist visiting Denmark left him very confused and a little disappointed by telling him the truth about Vikings and that we did in fact not have reservations or anything. It just occurred me that you Scandinavians are missing out on a potentially very profitable business opportunity. When a friend from Germany came to visit me in Turkey, the first thing he asked the people here was if we also spoke Arabic and why most women don't wear the hijab. I did move from the US to Turkey 15 years ago, and despite a hobby in photography and sharing constantly in social media about my life in Istanbul, altogether too many people I know still ask if I have to cover, can look my husband in the eye, and if I learned Arabic. Both of these overheard in a souvenir shop in Amsterdam. Cashier, that'll be 30 euros, please. American tourist, what's that in real money? Different, American tourist, what do you mean you don't accept dollars? And not really something anyone has said, but still worth mentioning, apparently some Americans don't realize they can't just take their firearms with them to Europe. There was a cop that complained that he couldn't bring his firearm across the Canadian border because when he was in Canada he felt threatened by someone asking him a question. That Norway is the capital of Sweden. Oh, Denmark is in Sweden too. Do I have to write /s because this is Reddit and people might actually think that I think that my country is in Sweden? OMG, someone at my uni in the US said, oh yes, Sweden is in the UK, right? This person is an international relations major. They also got mad that I laughed because how am I supposed to know everything about all places? Well, I do suppose people speak pretty good English in England. I love this part of England. While in a store in Edinburgh. Edinburgh, the Scottish capital. Sounds like a good way to get punched by a Scot. Reminds me of something I heard someone say at Korean barbecue, this is the best Chinese food I've ever had. Heard an American couple behind me be completely outraged that the Italian restaurant we were in would not accept them to pay in dollars. Wait, you don't take American dollars, with a huge emphasis on American. It was pretty funny how dumb those people were. Oh, that's a fairly common one in travel groups. Asking how to tip and if tipping in dollars is okay. At least they asked in advance, I guess. An American on tour in Italy asked me why we Australians didn't all know each other. Another American asked me, do I know what a backyard is and do we have them in Australia? Foreigners coming to India and speaking Hindi in non-Hindi states. Half of India doesn't speak Hindi. Flip side of that, when I was driving the length of India I had people ask me if I spoke Hindi and be shocked when I said no, I'm white British. I pointed out that multiple Indians had told me not to bother learning Hindi because many of states I was driving through didn't speak it or even a language related to it, and that I'd be better off just sticking to English. If it wasn't for us, you'd be speaking German, some stupid Yank, in Germany. Kinda the inverse, but I think it still counts. I'm an Australian, went on holidays in America. Ended up at an Outback Steakhouse for shits and gigs. The menu had a seafood dish associated with Toowoomba. Toowoomba's inland. Also, I was talking to the waitress and for the longest time, they had the flag upside down and it took another Australian to point it out. Like surely they saw a picture of the flag. They had to. And it was still upside down. I was talking to a lady in a bar in NYC once and told her I grew up in Malaysia, and she genuinely asked me, do you guys use money there or trade stuff? I was the tourist. I was told by many concerned co-workers and friends that I shouldn't travel alone as a woman to dangerous Eastern Europe because I was going to get trafficked or hostled. The dangerous Eastern European country with criminals waiting behind every corner to snatch away Spanish women? Slovenia. Had a dude come up here to Canada. We are talking business and whatnot, then he says, too bad you guys are completely communist now. Like, dude, I don't think you even know what that means. Sadly, to many Americans, any country with a tiny bit of socialism, including socialized medicine, is now communist. We can thank right-wing propaganda news for this. Occasionally we trade in people. Okay, your total is 3 Americans, 1 Australian, and half an Irish. Just yesterday, I don't want to follow Italy's traffic laws. What's the best way to get away with driving a vehicle I'm not licensed to drive? More funny than offensive. Where's the Parthenon? About 800 miles that way. Hello everyone. Thanks for sticking to the end of this video. I really appreciate it. I just wanted to humbly ask you to subscribe to the channel. According to my statistics, 100% of my viewers in the past 28 days are not subscribed. I have always wanted this channel to reach 1,000 subscribers, and if you want to support and be a part of that, subscribe. It's free and it's an awesome way to support the channel. Thanks again. Reddit glitch out?